Hello everybody, it is John Pollock alongside Cody Saftik. And Cody, a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, once again, John, as always.
We are going to be going back to UFC 205 because yes, we are a few days removed from it, but when you have these stacked cards, this was certainly the case for 200 and I think even more so for 205, and you sound the alarm, and it is alarming at how underreported some of these stories were coming out of 205, and I want to start with Joanna Jedrzejczyk, who had a tremendous performance against Karolina Kowalkiewicz. This is a fight, Cody, that I feel these two women could very well meet again in their careers, and for Kowalkiewicz, I think she can really hang her hat on that fourth round and performing at a level that not everyone expected her to be at against the top strawweight in the world.
Well, she's in a unique situation too, because on one hand, there's going to be that cry from people that are like, she gave Joanna her toughest fight, so you obviously want to see that rematch. On the other hand, it was a 4-1 beating, so she's going to be able to learn from that. Her stock's going to get bigger from this for sure. But at the end of the day, you got to look at the actual contenders in the division. She's someone that got knocked down a peg, and because she's going out there, she's beating girls like Rose, she's knocking them down a peg as well. So it's very interesting to see what Joanna's going to do in that division, because unlike other divisions, if you go and you blow them out, if you're a John Jones, at least there's that discussion of moving up the weight class. With a guy like Conor, there's that discussion of moving up a weight class. She can't move up a weight class because there isn't 125 pounds. Surely we don't want to see her at 135 pounds. So it leaves her in a very unique situation. But as far as Karolina goes, she'll be back. She'll be stronger than ever, and you're right. They've met, I guess, twice now if you consider that amateur fight, but
yes,
they'll surely meet again.
Did not want to talk about beforehand when I brought it up. It was irrelevant to her, which it kind of is in 2012. But you mentioned 125 pounds. I think there's more of an argument for that weight class than even 145 pounds. There are so many women in that middle zone, Joanna being one of them, who has stated she would like that weight class. We know Valerie Letourneau, Joanne Calderwood. That alone is the building blocks of a division, and it's a massive gap for these women when you're looking at a 20-pound weight differential between the two weight classes.
I think what you need to do right off the bat is go out and get the Invicta division, because they have a lot of good contenders at 125 pounds, and at least right off the bat, you can come and populate division a little bit. We see with Joanne Calderwood and Valerie Letourneau, they actually fought at 125 pounds, and it was a good fight, but since then, Joanne Calderwood loses to Andrade, and obviously Valerie Letourneau lost to Calderwood, so two of your 125-pound contenders are gone right there. But you look at a girl like Alexa Grasso, who recently just debuted with the UFC. She beats Heather Jo Clark. This girl's 9-0. She's good-looking, she's marketable, and someone who already has a built-in fan base. But the UFC fans, they don't know her because she's been fighting for Invicta. So you bring this girl and you give her a high-profile fight, whether she fights a girl like Tecia Torres. And if she wins, then conceivably she's in that mix for a title shot. Same thing with the girls from 125. Bring them in, let them get a couple fights, and then if Joanna chooses to go up, at least there's that discussion of, ooh, you know what, the Invicta champ's already here and has some size on her to begin with. So I think it's interesting to choose what they want to do with the division, but there is some options.
Let's move on as well. Miesha Tate is losing to Raquel Pennington. It was the biggest win of Raquel Pennington's career, and conversely, the last one of Miesha Tate's. Do you look at that retirement, Cody? Because she flat out said this was a decision based on the performance that just occurred when she was speaking with Joe Rogan. She's 30 years old. We've definitely seen her take a lot of damage. The Amanda Nunes fight, I think you somewhat look at, that's something that can happen. She was overwhelmed, but this fight against Raquel Pennington, the Miesha Tate of a year ago, to me blows through Raquel Pennington. Is this a wise choice for her to be hanging it up even at a young age, or do you think this was a heat of the moment decision, much like when BJ Penn announced his retirement after the Nick Diaz fight? 99
times out of 100, when someone announces the retirement after a fight, you can definitely speculate that it's not the real end. They're going to come back at some point. In her case, I really do think that this was a passing of the torch, passing it on to Raquel Pennington. But also, you have to think back to when she lost to Ronda Rousey the second time. She goes on this long string of victories. She beats Sarah McMahon. She beats Liz Carmouche. She goes out there and beats Jessica Ai. Then she wants this title shot. And the UFC tells her at the time, you know what, you've lost twice to Rousey. We're not going to give you that title shot. So she actually announces retirement then. She says, if I'm not going to get this shot, then what's the point of being here?
The seed was planted.
Exactly. The seed is already planted that she's thinking about it. Maybe I'm not at the highest level. I can't beat Ronda, and if they're not going to give me the shot, maybe I want to back out of this. Now, Holly comes out there and beats Rousey. That gives you a unique situation that, well, now I can conceivably come out and beat Holly. She does beat Holly, and it was a tough fight. She needed that fifth round, and she did it. But now you lose to Nunes, and in that fight, it exposes that I was kind of looking for a way out, not in the fight certainly, but just I was thinking about retirement to begin with, and this is a very heartbreaking loss. Now I'm going to see how I regroup and go into this last fight. Now you got to think that Raquel Pennington's a girl that Miesha Tate coached on The Ultimate Fighter. This is someone that she was familiar with, and she saw that this as that next young breed of fighter that's coming up through the ranks. It was a passing of the torch in many ways, and I think Brian Caraway said it the best. He goes, you know, Miesha just wasn't herself in training camp. She had said in the hotel last night that, you know, you're already thinking about the end. You're already thinking, if I don't look good in this fight, I'm done. So that seed's been planted in your head that maybe I'm at the end of the rope. And she certainly fought like a girl that didn't want it, wasn't going for it. And Raquel, conversely, this is the Super Bowl for her. This is the biggest fight she's ever been in. She wants this more than anybody. So it was a very interesting fight. I would have to say that Miesha Tate is done, but she'll be a great mentor for future fighters for sure.
What is the legacy for Miesha Tate if this is in fact her last fight? Because for me, this is a woman that I think faced enormous scrutiny when it was the Ronda Rousey feud, for lack of a better term. She was kind of in this villain role at one point in time, and for all of the focus that was on Ronda Rousey, it was her fight, the first one with Miesha Tate in Strikeforce in Columbus, that promotion and the end result of that really sold the UFC on the women. And Miesha Tate was a big part of that, and she grew to bring her own audience to fights, and by the end of her career, I think a lot of people look at Miesha Tate as a super popular figure that was able to cultivate this audience. And I think Ronda Rousey needed that foil, and that's what Miesha Tate represented, and then crafted out her own identity and won a championship on top of it.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's the legacy at the end of the day, is that people often forget that she's also a girl that helped kind of pioneer the sport of women's MMA, especially at her weight class. She fought in hook and shoot. She fought in the Strikeforce one-night tournament where she had to fight twice in one night on that Challenger Series event, headlined by Joe Riggs. She's been around for a long time, and on top of that, you go out there and you capture a Strikeforce title against Marloes Coenen. You go into the UFC and you capture a title, and I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is that Ronda Rousey needed that fighter. Ronda Rousey needed that girl that was going to push her, and in a lot of senses, people they had to pick. Do I want to take Miesha Tate or do I want to take Ronda Rousey? But having that agreement or a disagreement of who do you think's better, or what camp you're with, or I'm with Tate, I'm with Rousey, that adds to the sport, and that added to Rousey's development, and which is great for the whole sport in general. So I think Miesha Tate has a very pivotal role in it, but I certainly look at her as someone who helped pioneer the sport, and I know that sounds crazy because she is still young, but she deserved everything she got. She worked harder than everybody, and I wish her nothing but the best in her future endeavors.
Real quick, next weight class that Frankie Edgar competes in will be?
I'm going to say 145 pounds. I think he's being stubborn and saying, if I get no Conor, I want 35. My heart tells me I'd love to see him at bantamweight.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. Where do you want to see Frankie Edgar fight at? Leave us a comment, and we will chat with you later this week.